Hello, wonderful geometry students. Welcome to lesson 2.05. Remember, please don't move on to this lesson until your teacher has marked you off to passing the mastery check for 2.04. Today, we're going to practice modeling through annotating, and our objective is I can prove triangle congruence using midpoints, bisectors, and perpendicular angles. If you need your reference sheet 2.02 for these vocab words, feel free to refer to it. And perpendiculars make right angles. All right, do now. Given N is the midpoint of AB, angle D is congruent to angle C, angle A is congruent to angle B. Prove that triangle DAN is congruent to CBN. Now, pause this video, try that do now. Remember, you always start with the given and with the proof, and don't forget to annotate the givens. All right, so if you gave the do now a shot, check it out. So we're gonna start with the givens. Now here's a little tip. You could mention all of the givens in one line, or you can mention each piece of the given as you use them. I prefer the latter method, so I'm going to use each piece as we use them. So before we begin, I'm going to annotate. N is the midpoint of AB. So AB is a segment. So if N is a midpoint, AN, tick mark, is congruent to NB, tick mark. Remember, if you have a midpoint in a segment, you don't get congruent angles out of it. If you divide a segment in half, you get two smaller segments. Next, angle D is congruent to angle C. Put one arc, and angle A is congruent to angle B. Now watch out, do not put right angles, even though it looks right, we cannot assume that. So from our diagram, we have angle, angle, side. So I'm gonna write my compass, angle, side. Sometimes it will not match exactly by row, but let's check it out. First, we need one angle. So angle D is congruent to angle C. Another angle is angle A is congruent to angle B, and both of these are givens. You could put it all in one line, but I just like to follow the compass. Now, sides. We know that AN is congruent to NB, but we only know this because of the given. N is the midpoint. So N is the midpoint of AB. And then, because it's the midpoint, we could say that AN is congruent to NB. Don't forget your segment notations. And instead of writing definition of something, please write what the definition does. Midpoints make two congruent segments or sides. And the last that some students have been forgetting to always end with what you have to prove. So because we have AAS, we could say that both these triangles, DAN and CBN, are congruent because of the AAS. So I started with the givens. I listed all of them. I ended with what we have to prove. I got my AAS from first annotating the diagram, and we are done. Let's keep practicing. Mini number 2, using angle bisectors. So given XM bisects ZXY, and the arcs are already given, and Y is congruent to angle Z. Now, sometimes outside of the given, you have to make inferences. We see that XM is the reflexive side, it's the shared side, so XM is congruent to XM. So my triangle congruence will be, shortcut will be ASA. Remember that X means a reflexive side. So I'm going to write ASA. So I'm going to start with the given. XM bisects angle ZXY. My first angle is angle Y is congruent to angle Z. That is a given. My side is XM is congruent to itself. Reflexive property. Like, it sounds like a reflection. Because this triangle has XM as a side, and the top triangle has XM to the side. So that side is congruent for both those triangles. And our last angle is angle YXM. YXM is congruent to ZXM. Why? Because bisected angles are congruent. Don't write definition of bisected, say what they do. And then we finally end with what we had to prove. Triangle YXM is congruent to triangle ZXM using ASA. Pause this video if you need more time. I annotated the diagram with the givens. I started with the givens, I ended with the proof, and I have my triangle shortcut as my compass. Don't forget those crucial steps. Let's move on. Now this one. This is really critical because when it mentions perpendicular lines, please star this. You have to mention multiple steps to prove that both those angles are right. So first, let's label the diagram or annotate. Given BA is perpendicular to YZ. So if you refer to your colorful sheets or 2.02, you know that perpendiculars make right angles on both sides. So I put 90 degrees, the boxes, and it says that BA bisects angle YBZ. So you can imagine this pizza being bisected in half. So these two angles are congruent. And outside of my givens, I see that BA is the shared side. So that is reflexive. So we're going to have angle, side, angle as our compass. I'm going to write it loosely. So first, let's start with the bisected angle. So first, BA bisects angle YBZ, and that's a given. And so that means angle YBA is congruent to angle ZBA. Why? Bisected angles, use shorthand, are congruent. Now we need a side. Our side is BA is congruent to BA, or AB is congruent to AB, doesn't matter, still refers to the same side because of the reflexive property. And now our last angle. I'm going to restate the given. BA is perpendicular to YZ. It's a given. And then, this is super important. First, we have to establish that both angles YAB and angle ZAB are right angles. Why? Perpendiculars make right angles. After we establish that they're right, then we can say that those two angles are congruent. Why? Because all 90-degree angles are congruent. All 90 degrees angles are all 90 degrees. They can't be anything else. That's why they're equal to each other. And then we finally end with, now that we have ASA, we could say that triangle AYB is congruent to triangle AZB using angle, side, angle. Now, I annotated, I got my triangle shortcut compass. I started with the given, ended with what we had to prove. Now, please star steps 4, 5, and 6. If you ever are given perpendiculars on the regions or the summative, first you need to state they're perpendicular, then you have to state that they're both right angles, and then you have to say that they're equal to each other or congruent to each other. So for number level 3, since we're mentioning perpendiculars, don't to mention those 3 steps. All right. So you're going to do the check for understanding. Please make sure your teacher checks this off before you move on to the practice in level 1. And I will see you next time. Take care.